The scorching late afternoon sun of a summer day painted the Colorado desert in a deep crimson. Emily Parker leaned against her gleaming white Porsche, her small hand trembling as she held her phone, staring helplessly at the words. No signal. Over 30 minutes had passed. All around her was nothing but barren land and jagged cacti stretching endlessly into the distance. With not a single soul passing by, she exhaled with weary resignation. The image of a proud, self-made young millionaire felt utterly out of place in this stark, silent wasteland. Suddenly, a slender figure emerged in the dusty distance, walking toward her with a calm but purposeful stride. Emily's heart beat faster, a mix of curiosity and a flicker of caution coursing through her. Under the blazing sun, a young black man, Marcus Reed, perhaps 19 years old, approached. He was tall and lean, his dark brown skin glistening in the sunlight. His faded button-up shirt had its sleeves rolled up above his elbows, and the simplicity of his attire only highlighted the way his clear, honest eyes seemed to reflect genuine goodwill. Marcus glanced at the luxury car, then turned to Emily with a relaxed, easy smile, as if their meeting was the most ordinary thing in the world. "Looks like you've been stuck here for a while, huh?" Emily frowned, taken aback by the candor behind his sharp but friendly gaze. She let out a small laugh, trying to dispel the awkward tension that had settled. "Long enough that I'm starting to hate every cactus out here." Marcus chuckled, a clear, light sound that seemed to cut through the oppressive stillness. "Mind if I check your tire?" Emily hesitated for a moment. A stranger in the middle of nowhere. Should she trust him? Yet there was nothing threatening in Marcus's demeanor, nothing that even suggested interest in the expensive car beside them. Finally, she nodded, a faint smile on her lips. "Thank you." Marcus dropped a backpack to the ground, opening it to reveal a pair of worn work gloves and a compact, well-organized toolkit weathered by years of use. Without a single wasted movement or murmur of complaint, he began inspecting the wheel. Emily stood leaning against the car, holding her breath as she watched him work. There was something almost mesmerizing about his movements, smooth, precise, and rhythmic, with beads of sweat glistening on his sunlit skin. Strands of stray hair clung to his forehead, lending him a lively, authentic beauty unlike anything Emily had ever encountered in her refined world. "Do you often help strangers like this?" she asked, finally breaking the silence. Marcus shrugged slightly, still focused on his task. "Every now and then. My uncle owned a repair shop in town. He taught me everything before he passed." The simplicity of those words gave Emily pause. She stood still, something stirring deep within her. Admiration, a hint of respect, and something more, an emotion she'd never felt before. Marcus stood up, wiping his hand on his faded jeans, a warm smile returning to his youthful face. "All done." Emily rummaged through her designer handbag for her wallet, instinctively reaching to repay him. But Marcus shook his head, raising a hand in gentle refusal. "Don't worry about it. I'm just glad I passed by at the right time." She froze, her slender fingers hovering in the air. His sincere refusal surprised her even more than his mechanical skills. "You really don't need anything?" Marcus slung the backpack over his shoulder, meeting her with clear, calm eyes. "I've got everything I need." Those words left Emily speechless. She watched Marcus walk away, his silhouette fading down the sun-baked road. Deep down, she realized the man who had crossed her path wasn't just a kind mechanic. He was the first person in her life to refuse her money, to see her simply as another human being rather than through the lens of her wealth or status. As Marcus Reed disappeared around the bend, Emily's heart swelled with a strange, new feeling, and a name echoed in her mind. A name she was certain would reappear many times in her life from that moment on. As the sun softened and the crimson glow of dusk began to spread across the deserted road, a new journey filled with twists and unexpected emotions unfolded between two people who never imagined they would meet. As Marcus's silhouette faded on the dusty, sun-baked road, Emily stood still for a moment longer, her gaze fixed on the empty horizon, as if expecting something or someone to return. The impression Marcus left lingered in her mind, both familiar and foreign. A strange feeling seeped into her heart and refused to fade. That night, back in her family's lavish Aspen mansion perched atop a hill, Emily tried to recapture the comforting peace that place once brought her, but now everything felt like cold, unfamiliar objects rather than the warm home she once cherished. She stepped onto the balcony, looking out as the Colorado Valley sank into shadow, her glass of red wine long since warmed. The soft moonlight bathed the distant hills in a gentle glow. But Emily's heart was a storm. Images of Marcus replayed relentlessly in her mind, his rough, calloused hands stained with grease, his calm gaze, unfazed by the gleaming Porsche. The more she thought of him, the more she realized her previous life seemed to have lost all meaning. She recalled a moment 3 weeks earlier in the grand boardroom of Parker Industries. That moment felt like a blade stabbing her pride and dignity. Richard Donovan, the company's vice president, someone her father had once trusted implicitly, stood there with ice in his eyes and cruelty in his tone, declaring, "Emily, the board deeply appreciates everything you've contributed, but now the company needs a leader with more experience and greater influence. This is about a harmonious and benevolent transfer of power." Emily's bitter laugh echoed in her mind as she recalled the words harmonious and benevolent. In reality, it was a meticulously staged masquerade. Richard had quietly rallied the entire board against her to seize control of the company her father had built from scratch. Everyone in the room averted their eyes, as if she were a pitiful failure. All her years of dedication had suddenly become insignificant. Richard Donovan, once an unassuming junior employee mentored by her father, had become the coldest traitor imaginable. His gray eyes, peppered hair, meticulously groomed mustache, and every gesture exuded arrogance and power. He never bothered to hide his ambition, which far outweighed any loyalty to the Parker family. Yet Emily had never imagined he would go so far as to oust her, the very daughter of the man who had given him everything. Emily's jaw clenched, her anger mingling with deep hurt as she acknowledged that the world she had always called home was ready to turn its back on her the moment she lost her edge. But what hurt most was the realization of her own role. She had spent her youth chasing an idealized image, running to keep up with her family's and society's expectations, only to realize that when everything crumbled, she was left with nothing but loneliness. The moonlight illuminated Emily's beautiful face, tears streaming down unnoticed. She looked up at the night sky, whispering to the heavens, "Dad, where did I go wrong? Why did it all have to end like this?" In that moment of despair, Marcus's image returned, vivid and painfully real. Marcus, the young stranger, had shown her through a simple act of kindness that another world existed, one where a person's worth wasn't measured by bank balances or social status, but by sincerity, compassion, and humility. Marcus's genuine simplicity acted as a mirror, reflecting all the superficiality Emily had been accustomed to since childhood. For the first time, she recognized she was trapped in a hollow, glittering existence. Emily managed a tearful smile, acknowledging bitterly that it had taken a profound betrayal by those closest to her for her to truly see herself. Late into the night, her phone buzzed incessantly with messages. She glanced at the screen and saw texts from investors, a few high society friends she had once relied on, even a message of feigned concern from Richard Donovan. She ignored them all, refusing to read or respond. That world had lost all true meaning. In the silence of the mansion, Emily softly closed the balcony door and entered her grand, cold bedroom. Lying in her familiar bed, her mind still churning, she whispered to herself, "Marcus, thank you for coming into my life and reminding me I can choose my own path again." Finally, sleep came, but Emily knew her life would never be the same, and perhaps that change would begin with the impression Marcus had unwittingly etched into her soul, a shadow that wouldn't fade easily. Before the first light of dawn could bathe the distant hills, Emily was already awake, her mind still haunted by Marcus's image. Throughout the night, her sleep had been restless, torn between wandering thoughts and powerful unrest. In Emily's mind, one clear, unwavering decision remained. She had to return to the place where they met, even if she didn't fully understand what she hoped to find. She quickly slipped into her simplest clothes, shedding the luxury brands she normally wore like armor against the world's gaze. A soft white button-up shirt, slightly dusty jeans, and old sneakers she had tucked away in her closet long ago suddenly felt perfectly suited for this journey. The white Porsche purred beneath her, but Emily's heart felt heavy with anticipation. She kept wondering what awaited her at the end of the road. Rejection, distance, or the truth she had avoided all along. Along that familiar stretch of road, the morning light brought the landscape to life in a way she had never noticed before. The road was quiet, but she didn't feel alone as she had the last time she was here. A mix of anxiety and hope grew as she neared their old meeting spot. Emily's eyes searched for the familiar silhouette of the young man with calloused hands and clear, honest eyes, the one who had completely upended her thoughts. She passed the old gas station, drove by rickety wooden fences, and finally stopped when she spotted Marcus in the distance. Her pulse quickened as she gently slowed her car to the roadside, stepping out as softly as if she feared a single whisper might shatter the beautiful scene before her. Marcus stood on a worn ladder, his curly hair damp with sweat, carefully repairing the weathered wooden porch of an elderly neighbor's faded house. His movements were deliberate and precise, each hammer strike sure and confident, and he seemed completely unaware of Emily's presence. Seeing him like this made Emily's heart race with both surprise and joy. A warmth spread through her chest, a feeling unlike any emotion she had ever experienced. "Marcus, got some company?" called the old woman from below, her voice soft and kind as she smiled up at him. Marcus turned, startled. The moment their eyes met, Emily caught a glimmer of astonishment mixed with a hint of embarrassment in his gaze, but he quickly regained his characteristic calm smile. "Emily, didn't expect to see you again so soon." "I didn't either," Emily replied softly, her nervous excitement making her feel like a teenager meeting her crush for the first time. "I was just passing through and wanted to see if you were around," she said, fumbling for the most reasonable explanation for her sudden appearance. Marcus climbed down the ladder, wiping his hands on his jeans, his eyes curious but warm. "Is the car doing all right?" "Better than ever, thanks to you," Emily replied quickly, as if afraid he might vanish again. "But I never properly thanked you. If you don't mind, I'd love to buy you a coffee to say thanks." Marcus studied her for a long moment, his clear eyes seeming to search something deep within her heart. Finally, he shrugged, still wearing that soft, easy smile. "Sure, as long as you're not trying to pay me back again." Emily burst into laughter, the tension dissolving instantly. She realized there was something uniquely comforting about Marcus's presence, something that let her forget the heavy pressures that had haunted her until now. He exchanged a few quiet words with the old woman, then walked with Emily toward the car parked a short distance away. During that brief walk, Emily discreetly observed Marcus. She noticed the simple joy shining in his eyes and the natural ease of his demeanor, which eased her worry about perhaps acting too awkwardly. That authentic, grounded feeling was something she had never experienced with any man in the glittering, privileged world she lived in. Emily understood clearly in that moment that this meeting wasn't just about thanking him for fixing her tire. It was the first step toward breaking down the barriers between their entirely different worlds, and it marked the beginning of a friendship Emily could never have anticipated. When they stopped beside the Porsche, Emily opened her car door and looked deeply into Marcus's eyes, sincerity shining in her own. "Marcus, have you ever felt like a perfect stranger could somehow feel incredibly familiar?" Marcus blinked in surprise for a moment, then returned her gaze with a gentle smile, and answered sincerely, "Now I do." Emily smiled, a simple, pure happiness flowing into her heart like a cool stream. For the first time in a long time, she felt truly lighter, and she believed without a doubt that no matter what the future held, today's reunion would mark the start of a special journey neither of them would ever forget. Marcus hesitated for a moment, but Emily's sincere gaze and gentle smile made it impossible to refuse. The woman standing before him was no longer a wealthy stranger but a genuine companion, seeking something real in a world full of skepticism. "I'd be happy to," Marcus replied softly, a bit shy but sincere. They stepped into a small cafe tucked into a quiet street corner. The space was simple but cozy, with soft cream-colored walls and warm yellow lighting. Emily chose a secluded spot by the window so they could talk in peace. She sat, her heart still racing. Marcus took a seat across from her, his eyes both cautious and curious. "I'm honestly surprised you came back," Marcus began softly. A slight smile crossed his lips, though his gaze remained serious. Emily looked down at the steaming cup of strong black coffee just brought to her and took a deep breath, as if gathering the courage to start their conversation. "I'm not entirely sure why I came back, but I knew I had to see you again." Marcus fell silent for a moment, then spoke slowly, his voice tinged with melancholy. You know, I'm used to people passing through my life and then disappearing. Very few actually stop like you did. Marcus's sincere words made Emily's chest tighten with empathy. She responded softly, her voice full of understanding. I get that, even if it's hard to believe. The truth is, I always assumed I was surrounded by lots of people. But it wasn't until I hit rock bottom that I realized no one was truly on my side. Marcus looked at Emily, his eyes carrying a distant sadness. My parents split when I was 8. My dad drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and my mom left because she couldn't handle the poverty anymore. I grew up with my aunt. She wasn't rich, but she taught me to live with self-respect and love. But you know, prejudice is everywhere. Emily listened in silence, her eyes deepening with sympathy. She had never imagined someone as strong and composed as Marcus had carried such wounds. She asked softly, her voice gentle as if afraid to hurt him further. Did that make you keep your distance from the world? Marcus nodded slightly, looking directly into Emily's eyes as if he wanted to share everything. I learned to keep people at arm's length to avoid getting hurt. Every time I walk into a room, I feel like people judge me just because of my skin color or background. A comfortable silence settled between them, not one of unease, but of two people truly understanding each other's hearts. Emily felt her own barriers dissolve. You know, I've felt something similar, only I was defined by what I had. When I lost my position as CEO of the company my father built, everyone I thought was my friend turned their backs on me. In their eyes, I was nothing but a failure. Marcus looked at Emily with surprise, a bit taken aback, but full of empathy. I didn't think you'd been through that. Emily offered a soft, bittersweet smile, her voice lowering as if confessing a secret she had never shared with anyone before. You just don't know, Marcus. Growing up in a world that demands perfection means that if you stumble, even once, everything vanishes like a dream. And the saddest part is that's when I realized I never had anything truly valuable. Marcus's eyes filled with understanding. He gently placed his hand on the table in a sincere gesture of comfort. Emily, maybe the real valuable thing you found is recognizing what you truly need in life. In that moment, a tender emotion passed between them. Two people from opposite worlds had been brought together by an understanding of past losses. Wounds that once seemed insurmountable had become a bridge bringing them closer. Emily nodded slowly, her eyes shining with renewed faith and hope. Maybe you're right, Marcus. I'm truly lucky to have met you because you've reminded me there are still good things in this world. Marcus smiled warmly, his gaze radiating the rare peace Emily had been longing for. Their coffee cups sat cooling on the table, but neither seemed to care. Between them, an invisible bond had formed, far beyond mere chance, a genuine friendship with the power to transform their lives. In the days that followed, a warm silence lingered between them as Emily looked deeply into Marcus's eyes, as if seeking agreement or at least understanding for what she was about to say. She gently picked up the now cold coffee cup in front of her, twirling it in her hand, her heart filled with emotions. Marcus, she began, her voice soft but resolute. Since I lost everything I thought was most important, I've realized I have the chance to start something far more meaningful. I think I want to do something truly worthwhile. Marcus's brows furrowed with curiosity, his gaze growing more focused and serious. What do you mean, Emily? Taking a steadying breath, Emily's eyes lit up with passionate conviction as she shared her vision. I want to open a community center, a place where young people from tough backgrounds, those forgotten by society, can learn trades and vital skills, not just to make a living, but to live with dignity, like your aunt taught you. Marcus leaned back slightly in his chair, skepticism flickering across his features. Memories of empty promises and flashy but hollow charitable projects he had witnessed in the past must have surfaced. His tone grew cautious, though still gentle. Emily, I appreciate your idea, but are you sure this is what you really want to do, and not just a way to ease your own guilt or sense of loss? Emily froze at his pointed question, her expression momentarily hurt before hardening with unwavering resolve. She looked Marcus in the eyes, speaking now with unyielding strength. "I understand why you doubt me, Marcus, but I'm not doing this just to feel better. I'm doing it because I was once a victim of a cold, superficial world where people judged each other only by possessions and status. I want to build a place where everyone is treated with respect and given a real chance to rise above their circumstances." Marcus fell silent, staring into the sincere depths of Emily's eyes. He sensed a genuine fire burning in her heart, something he recognized all too well. A young person who once longed for a chance that an indifferent world had denied. His voice softened, filled with cautious sincerity. "You really think someone like me can help?" Emily offered a gentle but determined smile, placing her small hand on the table, then leaning toward Marcus's. "Marcus, it's not just about helping me. I believe you're the one who can truly help young people like you were. You understand them better than anyone." Marcus looked up, meeting Emily's gaze again. In her eyes, he saw only sincerity and a burning enthusiasm. The doubts that had darkened his thoughts began to fade in the face of her honesty. After a long pause, he nodded, his voice steadier. "All right, Emily. I'm not sure how far we can go, but I want to try. I want to trust you." A radiant smile spread across Emily's face, her heart soaring at his agreement. It was more than a mere promise of collaboration. It was the moment their two vastly different worlds found common ground through empathy and a shared purpose. "Marcus, I promise you," she said with unwavering conviction, "we'll make this work, not for glory or profit, but because it's worth every effort we put into it." Marcus returned a sincere, relaxed smile, the first he had fully offered all day, and nodded. "All right, Emily. I trust you." Outside the cafe window, the soft glow of the late afternoon sun bathed them in warm, golden light, heralding a future full of hope. Two people, each with a past filled with pain, had found unity in a meaningful mission. And as Emily and Marcus stepped out of that small cafe, they both knew their lives would never be the same. This was just the beginning of a long, challenging, and ultimately beautiful journey to build something truly authentic and meaningful, something they had never dared to imagine before. That evening, when Emily invited Marcus to join her at her family's party in their lavish Aspen mansion, Marcus hesitated briefly. However, Emily's confident eyes and gentle smile made it impossible for him to say no. But as the luxury car passed through the grand gates into the glittering estate, Marcus felt an inexplicable unease. That night, the mansion sparkled as if coated in gold under the grand chandeliers, reflecting countless expensive outfits worn by distinguished guests. As Marcus entered the grand room, he immediately felt piercing, cold gazes sweep over him like invisible knives. He could tell at once that he was completely out of place amid this display of opulence and sophistication. Emily squeezed his arm reassuringly and smiled, but Marcus could clearly sense the tension in her gesture. A few guests quickly approached to greet Emily, barely glancing at Marcus, their curiosity tinged with disdain before they hurried away, as if he wasn't worth their time. Among them, Richard Donovan stood out, a man with peppered hair, icy eyes, and an impeccable appearance that masked his boundless ambition. He approached Emily, his voice laced with feigned politeness. "Emily, I'm surprised to see you back so soon. I thought you were still out there searching for your new purpose in life." Emily pressed her lips together, determined to keep her composure in the face of his barbed remark. She replied coldly, "Richard, I believe I've found something truly meaningful, something you could never understand." Richard's gaze immediately shifted to Marcus, a condescending, amused smile playing on his lips. "Oh, so this is your new purpose? A charity project? Or is it another performance to appease the public?" Marcus felt a sting in his chest at the implication of Richard's words. He realized he had become part of the spectacle this elite circle staged, treated as a mere ornament to bolster the image Emily hoped to build. He straightened, speaking in a low, steady voice full of resolve. "Excuse me, Mr. Donovan, but I'm not a project or anyone's decoration. I'm here because I believe in what Emily wants to do." Richard chuckled softly, patting Marcus condescendingly on the shoulder as if to dismiss his sincerity. "Young man, you're very naive if you truly believe in these lofty ideals. I don't think you know her as well as I do." Marcus froze, the unease within him intensifying as he noticed the surrounding guests' eyes turning toward him, whispering with intent. Under their scrutiny, he felt exposed, laid bare before their hidden ridicule. He looked to Emily for support or a strong rebuttal, but she was now surrounded by a group of wealthy women, their polite smiles masking a provocative edge. "Dear Emily," remarked a cold blonde woman, "is this how you're staging your little rebellion? Quite a novelty, isn't it?" Emily cast a hesitant glance at Marcus, but her silence lingered long enough for him to realize she was torn. Anger surged within Marcus. He felt used, just a pawn in Emily's attempt to prove something to those she had once rejected. Turning away, he hurried out to the quiet terrace, furious tears pressing behind his eyes. The calm outside contrasted sharply with the raucous party he had just left. Marcus took a deep breath, struggling to keep his composure but finding none. He felt more deeply hurt than ever before. Behind him, Emily rushed out, placing a trembling hand on his shoulder. "Marcus, I'm so sorry. I didn't think it would turn out like this." Marcus turned, his eyes colder and more hurt than they had ever been. "Emily, I trusted you, but now I have to wonder. Do you really want to help people? Or are you just using me as a tool to restore your status in their eyes?" Emily froze at Marcus's harsh words. She tried to explain, but her voice faltered in helplessness. "No, Marcus, you have to believe me. I never meant to use you. I genuinely want to build something real with you." Marcus looked straight into Emily's eyes, his voice quiet but resolute. "If that's what you truly believe, why did you stay silent when they mocked me? Why didn't you stand up for your own ideals in front of them?" Emily was speechless, unable to respond. Marcus shook his head in disappointment and walked away from the mansion. As his silhouette faded into the night, Emily stood alone in the stillness, her heart heavy with regret and deep sorrow. Inside, the music continued to play faintly, and the laughter and clinking of glasses carried on as if nothing had happened. But Emily knew she had just lost the trust of the one person who had truly believed in the good she wanted to do, and she realized that regaining Marcus's faith would be far harder than she had ever imagined. As Marcus's silhouette faded into the silent night, Emily remained rooted in the meticulously maintained rose garden of the family estate. Her heart twisted with disappointment and humiliation. The lights from inside the mansion still spilled onto the lawn, but a chilling sensation seeped into her bones, freezing her with every breath. A familiar icy voice laced with triumph broke the oppressive silence behind her. "I told you, Emily. People like that only make you look more ridiculous." Emily turned sharply, her eyes blazing as they met Richard Donovan's calm, mocking face. Now, he no longer masked his ambition or his disdain for Marcus. In his gaze shone a malicious satisfaction as he observed Emily's pain. "Why are you doing this, Richard?" Emily demanded, her voice trembling but resolute, fury evident in every syllable. Richard chuckled softly, his cold eyes gleaming with pleasure. "Emily, do you really think you can use a flashy charity project and a poor kid to restore your image after being ousted from the company? Are you that naive?" Emily clenched her fists so tightly her knuckles whitened. Each of Richard's cruel words felt like a dagger to her pride. She realized he had orchestrated this entire scenario, using the lavish party as a trap to render her powerless and humiliated. "I never intended to exploit Marcus," Emily said through gritted teeth, struggling to control her anger. "But you wouldn't hesitate to use anyone to get what you want, even betraying my father." Richard shrugged casually, unfazed by her accusation. "Your father was a great leader, but his time is long past. I'm only helping the company grow stronger. I won't let it fall into the hands of an inexperienced, gullible young woman." Emily's eyes burned with anger, but she also felt a surge of helplessness. She realized her hesitation and silence earlier had hurt Marcus more deeply than anything else. She blamed herself for allowing him to be wounded so painfully, and she wondered if she had, even unintentionally, used him to reclaim her own status. Unable to bear it any longer, Emily turned her back and hurried out of the garden, rushing toward the main gate, desperately searching for Marcus in the vast, silent expanse. Marcus's anguished voice echoed in her mind like a clear accusation. "If you truly believed in what you were doing, why did you stay silent while they mocked me? Why didn't you defend your own ideals in front of them? Tears began to stream down Emily's cheeks. For the first time, she fully understood her own weakness, that her fear of losing her reputation and social standing had controlled her actions and cost her the one person who had ever truly believed in her and understood her. She stood alone in the darkness, staring down the driveway leading out of the mansion, the path Marcus had just taken, her heart heavy with regret and pain. Emily knew this time she had made a profound mistake. She had failed to bravely stand up for both her ideals and the person who mattered most to her. The night around her seemed heavier, pressing on her heart with stinging accusations and deep wounds. Emily realized there was no going back. To make amends, she would have to prove Marcus's words wrong, that she had never intended to use him as a tool. But would Marcus still believe her? A cold breeze swept through the garden, and Emily shivered, both from the chill and the crushing loneliness. At that moment, she understood more clearly than ever that to regain Marcus's trust, she had no choice but to confront herself and rediscover the honesty she had hidden behind status and prejudice. With that resolve, Emily slowly turned and re-entered the grand mansion. From now on, she vowed she would never again be powerless. She would fight for her convictions and for what truly mattered above all, being worthy of the faith Marcus had once placed in her. In the days following that fateful party, Emily was consumed by guilt and deep reflection. She realized that not only had she lost Marcus's trust, but she had nearly lost herself. Marcus's hard questions haunted her like knives, piercing her mind every time she closed her eyes. Emily avoided everyone, retreating to her spacious, cold bedroom, trying to sort through the chaos of her emotions. She understood that if she didn't confront her mistake soon, she would forever lose the most precious thing she had ever found, Marcus's sincere faith in her. Then one sunny morning, Emily decided to rise, slip into the simplest clothes she owned, and drive to the small woodworking shop where Marcus worked. Throughout the drive, her heart pounded with a mix of fear and hope. She didn't know how Marcus would react, but she knew she had to explain everything. The small woodworking shop sat peacefully on a quiet street amid modest homes. Emily stepped out of her car, her heart racing, as she saw Marcus carefully sanding an old wooden table, his hands moving with agility and confidence. The sight made her realize that Marcus found peace in the simplest tasks, so different from the glamorous world she had known. Marcus looked up at the sound of footsteps. His eyes flickered briefly with surprise, but quickly hardened with caution. Emily stepped forward, her voice trembling, but determined. "Marcus, I know I'm probably the last person you want to see right now, but I really need to talk to you. I owe you a sincere apology." Marcus set down his polishing cloth and remained silent for a long moment before responding in a calm, somewhat distant tone. "Emily, I'm not sure you have anything left to say. I thought I could trust you, but maybe I was wrong." Emily felt her heart tighten at Marcus's coldness, but she understood it was the natural result of her own silence and weakness. She stepped closer, looking him straight in the eyes, and spoke slowly and clearly. "Marcus, you have every right to be angry, and I fully deserve your coldness. But believe me, I never intended to use you as a pawn to fix my image in anyone's eyes. That night, I was just too weak and too scared. I was afraid of losing the acceptance of people I once thought were the most important." Marcus looked at her, his gaze still stern but softening as he detected the sincere remorse in her voice. He sighed, his eyes reflecting deep hurt. "Emily, do you have any idea what it feels like to be mocked and despised? I've lived that my whole life, but it hurts even more when the person you trusted most stays silent in the face of that ridicule." Emily nodded softly, her voice trembling with emotion. "I know I was wrong, Marcus. I failed when I didn't stand up for you. But that was the biggest mistake I've ever made, and I swear I'll never make it again." Marcus studied her for a long time, his expression gradually softening. He could clearly sense that Emily was speaking from the depths of her heart. After a brief silence, he spoke again, his voice deeper and more sincere. "Emily, you know, I've been thinking a lot these past few days. I wondered if I was too sensitive, if my past wounds made me doubt the good intentions someone might have toward me." Emily took a small step forward, her eyes shining with hope. "Marcus, you're not wrong to doubt, but I want you to know, I'm not here to beg for pity. I'm here to prove I genuinely want to do something meaningful with you. I don't care about glory or status anymore. I only care that we can create something truly good together." Marcus gave a faint smile, so subtle but enough to warm Emily's heart. He nodded slowly, his voice much softer. "Emily, I don't know how far we'll go from here, but I think we can give each other, and ourselves, another chance. Because despite everything, I still believe you can truly do good things." Emily felt as if a great weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She smiled through grateful, emotional tears. She understood that between them, a sincere understanding had replaced their earlier doubts and pains. They stood quietly in the small woodworking shop, but the distance between them had vanished. Now they shared a new belief and a deep empathy born of their wounds. Emily spoke softly, her voice full of determination. "Marcus, please give me a chance to prove that this time, I won't let you face prejudice and doubt alone ever again." Marcus looked at her and offered the most sincere smile he had shown anyone in a long time. "I trust you, Emily. I really do." At that moment, as the morning sun flooded the shop, they both knew that no matter what challenges the future might hold, they would face and overcome them together, because now they were no longer alone. In the days following that emotional conversation at the woodworking shop, Emily found herself in an unprecedented state of uncertainty. She knew that if she truly wanted to prove to Marcus and herself that she would never exploit him again, she had to take the boldest step possible. So when she received an invitation to speak at the Denver Tech Conference, where powerful investors and media would be gathered, Emily accepted without hesitation. That day, the conference hall was illuminated by bright lights. All cameras pointed at the stage where Emily Parker, once stripped of her role as CEO of Parker Industries, was about to appear. Whispers and murmurs spread through the crowd, some curious, others skeptical. None of them knew what Emily intended to say. Marcus sat quietly in the back row, avoiding the curious glances of those around him. He didn't fully understand why Emily insisted he be there, but the sincerity in her voice and eyes made it impossible for him to refuse. Backstage, Emily took a deep breath, adjusted her lapel microphone, and stepped into the light. Every eye in the room fixed on her. Familiar and unfamiliar faces, some her former supporters, others who had turned their backs on her. Everyone waited to see what Emily Parker would do. Then, Emily glanced at the prepared notes on the podium, suddenly smiled, folded them, and set them aside. Her gaze settled on the back row where Marcus sat, watching her with evident concern. Her voice rang out, soft but firm, in the silent auditorium. "I'm not here today to talk about numbers or business strategies. I'm here to talk about something far more important." A quiet wave of surprise rippled through the audience. Investors and journalists exchanged glances, sensing something entirely different was unfolding. For a long time, I lost everything this society deems most important: power, status, respect. But when all that was gone, I discovered something infinitely more valuable. Emily continued, her voice growing stronger and more resolute. The audience fell completely silent, drawn in by the sincere conviction of her words. She looked directly at Marcus, her eyes filled with sincerity and courage. "I found someone who taught me what honesty and kindness are. Someone who helped me understand that our true worth is never measured by material possessions." Marcus's eyes widened in surprise. He sat up straighter, his heart pounding as he realized exactly what Emily was about to say. Around him, soft murmurs of curiosity and skepticism began to spread, all directed toward him. On stage, Emily held her head high, her voice full of pride and determination. "That person is Marcus Reed, and today, in front of all of you, I want to say that I love him. I love Marcus not because of his background or status, but because of his honesty, his strength, and his courage. And I'm ready to give up everything I have to protect this genuine love." The room erupted in astonished murmurs. Cameras flashed incessantly, and countless stunned expressions appeared in the crowd. Richard Donovan, seated in the front row, turned pale with shock and anger. He realized at that moment that Emily's declaration meant she was completely relinquishing any chance of returning to the company or reclaiming power. Marcus stared at the stage, his eyes filled with emotion and surprise. He couldn't believe Emily had dared to declare her feelings for him so publicly, knowing it could cost her every ounce of reputation and prestige in this glamorous world. His heart swelled with gratitude and disbelief. It was the first time he clearly and deeply understood how much Emily cared for him. Emily took a deep breath, her eyes shining with conviction as she concluded her heartfelt speech. "I know many of you will oppose my decision and mock it, but that matters little to me, because I've found what truly matters most in my life. Marcus, thank you for giving me the chance to recognize my own worth." She stepped away from the podium to sparse applause mixed with shocked stares. But Emily paid them no mind. She quickly descended from the stage, heading straight for Marcus, her eyes sparkling with fierce confidence. Marcus stood to meet her, locking eyes with her and offering a sincere, proud smile. Amid the murmurs and critical gazes of everyone around them, Emily saw only Marcus, and now she knew with certainty that she had made the right choice. Somewhere in a corner of the auditorium, Richard Donovan clenched his teeth, his gaze burning with bitter hostility. He told himself this battle was far from over, that Emily would pay dearly for her rebellion. But Emily was no longer afraid of anything, for she had discovered a new kind of strength, the strength of authentic love, transcending all superficiality and prejudice. Just hours after Emily's shocking declaration at the conference, her world seemed to explode. Sensational headlines flooded every news outlet and social media feed, from provocative titles to vicious comments, all focusing on the event Emily had bravely revealed to the public. The media seized the opportunity to stir heated debates. Major business journals published mocking headlines like "Emily Parker, from powerful CEO to fairy tale figure," and the even more biting "Emily Parker abandons family empire for romantic or reckless carpenter." Each article, each news snippet was like a dagger aimed at Emily, reminding her of the price she would pay for her honesty and courage. Richard Donovan quickly capitalized on the opportunity to attack Emily. In a calculated television interview, he declared coldly, "We regret Emily's decision, but it's clear she's no longer sane enough to hold such a significant leadership role. Parker Industries needs someone with the composure to separate work from personal life." Richard's words struck Emily's morale like a sledgehammer, publicly expelling her from the world she once belonged to. Major investors, no longer hesitating, withdrew their funding from the projects Emily had built, forcing her to realize she was facing a genuine financial crisis. The friends she considered confidants in high society turned their backs, stopped calling, and refused to respond to messages, as if terrified of being tainted by the biggest scandal in recent business world memory. Each time Emily received notice of an emergency meeting called by Richard to officially erase all traces of her from the company, her heart tightened. She thought she had prepared herself, but when confronted with the ruthless coldness of the very world she once identified with, the pain was deeper than she had ever imagined. However, amid this violent storm of public opinion, Emily discovered something unexpected and beautiful. Alongside the criticism and mockery, she began to receive countless heartfelt messages from ordinary people, people she had never met, but who felt deep empathy for her bravery and choice. One evening, as Emily sat silently in front of her computer screen, Marcus entered quietly and handed her a stack of handwritten letters. Surprised, she asked softly, "Marcus, what are these?" Marcus offered a gentle, proud, and emotional smile. "Strangers sending letters to the woodworking shop, asking me to give them to you. I thought you should read them." Emily opened the first letter with trembling hands. It came from an elderly woman in a small town in western Colorado, written in simple but sincere handwriting. "Dear Emily, I don't know you, but I want to tell you that you did something truly brave. You proved that true love still exists, no matter what people say." The letters that followed carried the same message. One came from a former soldier who wrote, "I thought there was no one left in this world brave enough to give up everything for what's right. Thank you for proving me wrong." A 12-year-old girl from Denver wrote, "Miss Emily, my brother tells me I'll never be an engineer because I'm a girl, but after hearing your story, I know I can do it." Each letter was like a small ray of sunshine, piercing the darkness, illuminating the path Emily was walking. She realized that while she had been rejected by those who once valued her only for her fame and wealth, she had gained the sincere empathy of countless strangers, people who appreciated her courage and the authentic love she had boldly displayed to the world. Marcus placed his warm hand on her shoulder and said softly, "See, you're not alone in your decision. This is the real value you found." Emily looked up at Marcus, her eyes shining with renewed hope and determination. She nodded and gave him the brightest smile she had managed since the storm began. "You're right, Marcus. I have no regrets. I made the right choice because now I truly understand my own worth." Outside, the maelstrom of public opinion continued. The mockery and attacks kept pouring in, but Emily was no longer afraid. She realized that amid the coldness of a world obsessed with prestige, she had discovered a different source of strength, authentic love, and the understanding of ordinary people who knew that a person's true worth is never measured by reputation or wealth. From that moment, Emily Parker would no longer live solely for herself. She was determined to stand and fight for those who believed in her authenticity and to show everyone that her choice had been absolutely the right one. A choice worth defending with everything she had. Among the hundreds of letters that poured in, one small envelope with messy handwriting and frayed edges caught Emily's attention more than any other. Gently, Emily opened the envelope, and her heart skipped a beat as she read the shaky but determined lines written by a girl barely 12 years old. "Dear Miss Emily." The letter began in a sincere and touching tone. "My name is Mia, and I live in a small neighborhood in Denver. I'm writing to you because last night my mom told me about your story on TV. She said you gave up everything for something you truly believe in." Emily felt her vision blur as she continued reading the next lines. "I've never met you, but I want you to know you've become my hero. At school, a lot of my classmates make fun of me because of my skin color. They say I'll never be able to do anything worthwhile, but after hearing your story, I realized what other people say doesn't matter. What matters is that I believe in myself." Every simple sentence from this young girl flooded Emily's heart like a wave of emotion. For the first time since the public opinion storm began, Emily felt a fierce validation of the path she had chosen. She realized clearly that no matter what the rest of the world said, her actions had truly touched the hearts of people like Mia, those who silently struggled against prejudice and discrimination every day. Marcus stood by the door, watching Emily silently. He approached and gently placed his hand on her shoulder, noticing the emotional tears streaming down her face. "You okay?" he asked softly. Emily looked up at him, her eyes shining with an unusual determination. "Marcus, reading these words, I now understand exactly how truly important what we're doing is. That's why we must never give up." Marcus glanced at the letter, his own gaze deepening as ever. He understood the emotions Emily was feeling because he, too, had once been a child like Mia, growing up under countless criticisms and doubts from those around him. "I know exactly how Mia feels," Marcus said softly, his voice low and filled with deep empathy. "I thought no one could change the world around me, but you taught me that as long as we have enough courage, anyone can make a difference." Emily gave a small smile and squeezed Marcus's hand in hers. The warmth of his palm filled her with profound strength. "We're not doing this just for us anymore, Marcus. We're doing it for Mia and everyone else who needs a glimmer of hope to get through the darkness out there." In the days that followed, they dove back into the community center project with more determination than ever. They no longer paid attention to the media's biting criticism or the cold indifference of those who once called themselves their friends. Their sole focus was building a truly helpful place for young people, where kids like Mia could find confidence, hope, and the strength to rise up. But at Parker Industries headquarters, Richard Donovan had not given up on his plan to ensure Emily's complete downfall. He sat in his dimly lit office, his cold, predatory eyes fixed on a video of Emily's confession at the conference. His arrogant voice echoed in the empty room. "Emily, you think you can win with a few tearful speeches and your cheap love story? I'll show you that this world never forgives weakness." Immediately, Richard picked up the phone and made a series of calls to investors, pressing them not only to fully withdraw their funding, but to find every possible way to destroy Emily and Marcus's reputation. For Richard, Emily's success with the community center project would be an unacceptable failure, and he was determined not to let it happen. Back with Emily and Marcus, They remained blissfully unaware of Richard's secret machinations. They were fully absorbed in planning the groundbreaking ceremony for the project, their hearts brimming with newfound hope and faith. Emily proudly displayed Mia's letter on the project's central bulletin board, a constant reminder that their efforts held deep meaning and truly touched the lives of others. Amid the challenges that awaited them, Emily and Marcus understood more clearly than ever that they were on the right path. A path filled with difficulties, but also with purpose. A path they were both ready to sacrifice everything to protect. And deep in her heart, Emily made a powerful vow to herself. She would never betray Mia's faith or the faith of others like her, who had entrusted their hope to her courage. For their sake, she would stand firm and fight to the end. With the newfound confidence from Mia's letter, Emily and Marcus poured all their passion into building the dream they pursued together, the Parker and Reed Institute. The name was simple, but carried profound meaning, symbolizing the harmony between two people from completely different worlds who now shared a single goal, a single ideal. From the day of the groundbreaking, nothing was easy. The meager funds left after the abrupt withdrawal of investors forced Emily and Marcus to handle nearly every task themselves. Marcus took charge of constructing the facilities, his calloused hands transforming lumber and bricks into warm, sturdy structures. Day after day, Emily worked by his side, no longer the fragile young woman of her past. She rolled up her sleeves, carried every brick herself, mixed every can of paint without complaint. Each evening, even after nightfall, both refused to leave the construction site. A small yellow work light illuminated their dust-covered faces, each glowing with fierce determination. Though they often felt exhausted and worn, a single glance into each other's eyes and the memory of Mia's sincere words reminded them that everything they were doing was truly worth it. Meanwhile, outside their world, Richard Donovan's plan to sabotage their project intensified. He knew that if this center succeeded, Emily's reputation could be revived, posing a significant threat to the position he had painstakingly built at Parker Industries. He began spreading malicious rumors to destroy Emily and Marcus's credibility in newspapers and on social media, calling the project a ridiculous masquerade and a desperate effort by a fallen heir. One afternoon, Marcus angrily slammed a newspaper onto a table after reading a vicious article orchestrated by Richard. "Emily, Donovan's going too far. We can't let him get away with this." Emily approached gently, taking his hand. Her voice was calm but brimming with determination. "Marcus, we can't control what Richard does. The only thing we can do is prove to him that his hateful words can't shake our will and determination." Marcus looked into Emily's eyes and recognized the strength and courage of a young woman once judged weak and naive. He nodded and squeezed her hand in solidarity. "You're right, Emily. We won't let him or anyone else shake our faith." In the days that followed, Emily and Marcus poured all their energy into the project. They met with every community member, rallied support from small businesses and local residents, requesting everything from construction materials to school supplies and books. Gradually, the local population, especially the youth, began volunteering with sincere enthusiasm and admiration. Meanwhile, Richard grew increasingly frantic as he saw the community rally behind Emily. He repeatedly called remaining partners, using his power and influence to force them to cut all ties with Emily's project. One afternoon, Richard came to the site in person, standing outside and looking in with a cold, mocking gaze. "Miss Parker, it's a shame you're wasting your time on an insignificant project like this. Do you really think a few makeshift walls can change anything?" Emily met Richard's icy gaze without flinching, her voice ringing with conviction. "Mr. Donovan, you may see this as a joke or a waste of time, but for us, it's a real dream, and I assure you, nothing you say or do can stop us." Richard laughed scornfully, turned on his heel and walked away, his voice ringing provocatively. "Keep dreaming your little dream, Emily. Soon you'll realize this world isn't made for dreamers." After Richard left, Marcus approached Emily, his tone warm and reassuring. "Don't let him get to you. We know what we're doing is right, and that's what matters." Emily gave a faint smile, her gaze stronger and more determined than ever. "Marcus, I'm not afraid of him anymore, because now I have you, and we have an entire community behind us." The final days of construction were filled with energy and hope, Scenes of Marcus teaching local youth how to build walls and assemble desks, and Emily showing them how to use computers or manage basic finances, became deeply moving moments. The laughter of the youth and their hopeful, shining eyes made Emily and Marcus even more certain they had made the right choice. On the day the project was completed, as Emily hung the Parker and Reed Institute sign above the front door, silent tears of joy and pride streamed down her face. Marcus stood by her side, his strong arms embracing her with love and pride. "We did it, Emily. And this is just the beginning." Emily looked up at the new sign and nodded firmly. "Yes, Marcus. This is just the beginning of something even more incredible that we're building." Both stood there in front of the facilities they had labored to create, fully aware that challenges still awaited, but they no longer felt fear because they understood that as long as they believed in each other and their dream, nothing would be impossible. As the sun rose higher, bathing the Parker and Reed Institute sign in brilliant golden light, Emily and Marcus knew the most important day of their lives had arrived. Local community members of all ages, races, and backgrounds had gathered early, eager to witness the moment the center would officially open its doors. Emily stood quietly to the side, her heart swelling, watching Marcus step onto the small stage set up in front of the Institute. Today, the man who had faced so much prejudice and pain in his life stood tall, his eyes shining with confidence, ready to share his story with everyone present. Marcus scanned the crowd, taking in the sincere faces of people ranging from gray-haired elders to hopeful teenagers. He took a deep breath and began speaking in a warm but powerful voice. "Today, I'm here not only to celebrate the opening of this center, but to share a story with you. A story about my own life." The crowd fell silent, listening intently as Marcus continued with complete honesty. "I grew up in a poor neighborhood where prejudice and discrimination were constant in my daily life. I was despised and doubted simply because of my skin color and background. There were times when I believed I would forever be trapped by those prejudices." Marcus paused briefly, making eye contact with individuals in the audience before continuing with even more pride and conviction. "But then, I met someone who changed everything. A woman who had the courage to give up all her privileges and wealth to step into my world, simply because she believed everyone deserved a chance. That person is Emily Parker." Marcus's gaze softened as he looked at Emily. At that moment, every eye in the audience turned toward the young woman standing quietly to the side, tears of emotion streaming down her cheeks. "Emily taught me that true courage isn't about never feeling fear," Marcus said, his voice trembling with emotion, "but about having the strength to face that fear and do what's right. She stood before everyone, risking her reputation and career to stand up for what she believed in." Marcus paused again, his voice filled with even more emotion as he continued. "And today, standing here with all of you, I want us to remember that this place isn't just a vocational training center. It's a place where anyone, regardless of their skin color or circumstances, can have the opportunity to change their destiny." Tears began to flow down many faces in the crowd. An elderly black woman with white hair stood, her applause filled with emotion. Soon, everyone in the audience rose to join her, the applause swelling into a heartfelt roar. Emily couldn't hold back her tears of joy. She looked at Marcus, her eyes expressing all the gratitude and love she felt for him. Yet, off to the side, partially obscured by the emotional crowd, a cold figure watched silently. Richard Donovan observed the scene with resentment and bitterness. He hadn't anticipated that his plot to destroy Emily and Marcus would fail so spectacularly. The community's heartfelt response was proof of his failure, and it only fueled his determination to find any means possible to crush their dreams. Richard clenched his fist, thinking he wouldn't give up so easily. For him, this battle was far from over. But at that moment, he could only stand there, powerless, watching the joy and unity overwhelm everyone, proving that all his schemes and influence were meaningless in the face of authentic sincerity. On stage, Marcus bowed in gratitude, then turned to Emily, extending his hand. Emily stepped forward, took his hand, and together they bowed to the audience amid the continued cheers and thunderous applause. "Thank you, Marcus," Emily whispered, her voice choked with emotion, "for giving me the chance to live as my true self." Marcus looked deeply into her eyes and smiled with happiness and fulfillment. "Emily, you're the one who changed everything. Without you, I would never have escaped the darkness of my past." As the two stepped down from the stage, community members rushed forward to embrace them, shake their hands, and thank them. Every face they met radiated hope and faith, affirming that the dream Emily and Marcus had built today had truly touched countless hearts. And as the sun set gently on that day, Emily knew they had won the most important battle. Not because they were rich or famous, but because they had created something truly meaningful, a home for faith, hope, and courage for all those who had been forgotten. As the final bursts of applause faded and the crowd slowly dispersed from the center's grounds, Emily and Marcus sat quietly on the small steps, watching the late afternoon sky turn a deep crimson. The air was unusually calm, a stark contrast to the earlier excitement, as if time itself wanted to grant this moment exclusively to them. Marcus gently took Emily's hand, his gaze drifting to the horizon, and spoke in a warm, soft voice. "You know, Emily, I spent almost my entire life facing despair. Every time I tried to rise, I was knocked down again by others' prejudice and doubt. There were moments when I truly believed hope was a luxury I could never afford." Emily looked at Marcus intently, feeling every ounce of pain in his words. She squeezed his hand reassuringly, as if transferring some of her strength from her own heart. Marcus turned to look at her, his eyes soft but sincere, and continued in a voice full of emotion. "But then you came along, and everything started to change. For the first time in my life, I felt real hope, that this life could still be worth living, worth believing in, and worth living fully." Emily offered a small, tearful smile, hearing those deeply sincere words. She responded in a voice filled with love and intensity. "Marcus, I never saw giving up my old world as a loss. On the contrary, it was only after letting it go that I truly found myself. I thought power meant controlling others, but now I understand that true power is having the ability to bring positive change to others' lives. And you, Marcus, are the one who taught me that invaluable lesson." Marcus looked at her for a long moment, so moved he was briefly speechless. Finally, he smiled gently and placed his warm hand on Emily's cheek. His voice was soft. "I never imagined I could love someone like you, Emily. But now, I can't imagine what my life would be without you by my side." In that moment, bathed in the golden light of the sunset, they looked deeply into each other's eyes, realizing that the love they shared had become their greatest source of strength, a strength that would carry them through all challenges and trials. However, not far away across the road, Richard Donovan sat silently in his sleek black car, his cold eyes fixed on Emily and Marcus. In stark contrast to the warm, romantic scene unfolding before him, Richard's heart was consumed by anger and bitter disappointment. He couldn't bear to see Emily, the woman he had once despised and dismissed without remorse, find happiness and success in a way he couldn't control. For Richard, the very existence of the Parker and Reed Institute was not just a personal defeat, but a genuine threat to his position in the business world. Richard's knuckles whitened as he gripped the steering wheel in frustration. He bitterly acknowledged that all his schemes and sabotage had miserably failed, but he refused to give up. Richard knew that as long as Emily and Marcus sustained the dream they had built, the absolute power he had always sought would never be fully realized. "You think you can beat me so easily?" Richard muttered harshly to himself, his gaze fixed on the happy couple. "No way, Emily. I'll never let you win this fight." Unaware of the simmering hatred lurking nearby, Emily and Marcus remained absorbed in their private moment, savoring this rare peace after so many days of tension. Emily lightly rested her head on Marcus's shoulder, silently watching the streetlights flicker on along the road. "Marcus," she murmured, her voice firm and sincere, "no matter what happens, from now on, I'll always be by your side." Marcus leaned down and kissed her hair, responding tenderly. "Me too, Emily. We've been through too much to get to this day, and I'll never let anyone or anything take away what we have." They sat in comfortable silence, cherishing the simple happiness they had fought so hard to earn. Emily closed her eyes, her heart filled with faith in the future. She knew that even though many challenges and dark plots still awaited them, she and Marcus would face them together and overcome them all. At that moment, Emily realized she had discovered true love, not based on wealth, power, or prestige, but rooted in the sincerity and unwavering trust between two people who had chosen to walk a difficult but deeply meaningful path together. She quietly vowed to herself that no matter what happened, she would always protect and cherish this love, for she now understood it was the true power that could enable her to change the world for the better. A year after that evening, under the warm Colorado summer sun, Emily and Marcus sat together again on the familiar steps in front of the Parker and Reed Institute. But this time, it wasn't a moment of rest after a long day's work. It was a quiet reflection on the remarkable journey they had shared. The Institute had become a symbol of pride for the local community, a place where hundreds of young people had found hope, confidence, and stable vocational skills to build better lives. Vocational training classes, life skills workshops, and counseling seminars took place every day, completely transforming a neighborhood once filled with doubt and prejudice. Marcus held a photograph from their grand opening, showing both of them smiling joyfully in front of a wall adorned with the words, "Love builds." This simple but powerful image had become the centerpiece of their shared office, reminding them daily of the true value they had created together. "Do you remember when we first hung this photo?" Marcus asked softly, his eyes filled with affection as he looked at Emily. Emily smiled gently, her eyes shining with that precious memory. "I remember it well. At that moment, I said that no matter how tough the future might be, as long as we have love and courage, we can always build something good." Marcus nodded and carefully set the photo on the table. He turned to tenderly hold Emily's hand. "And now, looking at everything we've accomplished, I know you were absolutely right. We've shown everyone that true strength doesn't come from money or power, but from love and sincerity." Outside the Institute, teenagers greeted each other cheerfully after classes, their laughter and chatter filling the air like a lively symphony. Watching them, Emily and Marcus understood that what they had built wasn't just a building, it was a future brimming with hope and opportunities for a new generation. Meanwhile, in a luxurious office nearby, Richard Donovan still hadn't given up his attempts to sabotage Emily and Marcus. Over the past year, despite his repeated failures, he couldn't accept that Emily had exceeded all his expectations. But this time, his eyes held not arrogance, but a hint of helplessness and bitterness. He realized that all the cruel schemes he had orchestrated couldn't stop the power of the honesty and courage that Emily and Marcus embodied. Sitting at a wide, empty desk, Richard wondered bitterly why all his money and influence couldn't buy true loyalty or authentic love. It was a painful lesson he would carry for the rest of his life. Back at the Institute, Emily gently rested her head on Marcus's shoulder, savoring the peaceful late afternoon. Marcus's voice rang out, full of emotion and pride. "You know, Emily, I used to think the future was something to fear, full of uncertainty. But you showed me that as long as we have love and courage, the future will always be filled with hope." Emily looked up at Marcus, her eyes reflecting profound happiness. "Marcus, we didn't just build a center, we built a new life. A life where everyone is loved and treated fairly." He smiled and wrapped his arms around her, a sense of joy radiating through them both. They knew at that moment that no matter what challenges lay ahead, as long as they had each other, they could overcome anything. Suddenly, a young voice rang out from the entrance. "Miss Emily! Marcus!" Emily and Marcus turned to see Mia, the girl who had once written to Emily, standing there with a radiant, proud smile. Mia had grown so much over the past year, her eyes now sparkling with confidence and determination. "Mia!" Emily exclaimed, moved to see her. She beckoned Mia to come closer. Mia stepped forward and hugged them both tightly, then announced with enthusiasm, "Because of this center, I really believe I can become a construction engineer. I want to build beautiful, sturdy houses just like you built this dream." Emily felt tears well up as she exchanged a deeply emotional glance with Marcus. At that moment, they knew all their sacrifices and hard work had been worth it, for they had truly changed lives like Mia's. "I believe in you, Mia," Emily replied softly, her voice full of love and encouragement. "Because you taught me that when we dare to believe and give everything we have, we can change the world." The sun sank slowly behind the distant mountains, its warm glow bathing the Institute in a promise of a bright future. Marcus gently held Emily in his arms and gazed at the horizon, full of hope. Emily, this is exactly what we always dreamed of. A future where true love is the greatest power of all. Emily squeezed his hand, knowing that from this moment on, no matter what challenges awaited, they would face them together with love and courage. They had built something truly meaningful, a future filled with hope, and a life worth living. Their story is a powerful testament that true love and courage can shatter all prejudices and open a future full of promise for us all. Sometimes, the most meaningful things are not wealth or power, but the ability to love and the courage to pursue what is right. Have you ever overcome prejudice or hardship through the power of love? Share your story in the comments below. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this story. We'd love to hear you share your thoughts in the comments below and let us know your favorite part. If you enjoyed the journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories like this one. And don't miss out. Hit the notification bell to always stay updated on our latest content. Your support means so much to us.